Thanks for dropping by. I'm Butch.
And I'm Katie.
We're soldiers, leaders, family members, and
Nerds.
We want to discuss with you applicable leadership tools that you can take away in your Alice Pack.
This is Army Leaders Improving Through Collective Experiences, or ALICE. Disclaimer. This video is not officially affiliated or endorsed by the U.S. Army.
Nope, it isn't.
Just us.
Just us. So today we're going to be discussing leadership lessons from Dune. I watched the movie. Katie here was an avid reader of the book. So we're going to discuss her top 5 and react to those leadership lessons and go from there. But I think there's a lot of applicable stuff.
Yeah.
From Dune. I think it's a great sci-fi novel and movie, but a lot of good lessons can be learned from it, and we're going to discuss those.
I'm so glad you're back. Okay, so my number 5 Army leadership moment that corresponds through Dune, book-wise for sure. We see it in the movie, in both movies, the 70s and the new movies. Mm-hmm. Gurney Halleck, at the opening of the book, he surprises Paul with combat training. And Paul's like, oh, I'm not in the mood. I don't want to do it. And then Gurney Halleck says, what has mood to do with it? You fight when the necessity arises. And it's very good because it's Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, on the original one. And then it's very good in the new one. Even.
Yeah, Josh Brolin.
Oh, it does mood have to do with it.
I mean,
but
you're fighting Thanos there in a knife fight. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, Timothée Chalamet. But yeah.
I mean, he's 15.
Yeah.
Give him a break. But
yeah.
He does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what does Gurney say? He says, oh, you did seem to finally get in the mood, didn't you? So there's an interesting element, or at least thought-provoking in an Army sense. In reality, how does that compare to our own experiences?
So what that scene means to me whenever I watched the movie is Josh Brolin and Chalamet. In the Army, we're taught, always be ready, fight tonight. In Korea, when I was in Korea, it's just part of that, kind of our generation, where we've always been ready to fight, ready to go all the time, having that switch turned on. And we're trying to convey, especially to the younger generations, you have to be ready. And the number one priority for a long time was readiness, especially whenever you and I were growing up in the Army, and it still is. Yeah. But it's just getting that message across that you have to be ready at any time. And I think that's a great message from this scene. And as leaders, how do we cultivate that? So that's something I think we all need to think about as leaders, is how do we convey all of our experiences and wisdom to the younger generations to make them ready to fight. I mean, it's a lot of preparation, a lot of self-discipline. You can see Paul in the movie, he's kind of warming up to it once they get started in the fight, and he starts picking up the intensity. But what Gurney is trying to convey to him is that Harkonnens are a very real threat. It has to sink in, just like we have real threats today in the United States military, and he has to wise up, give it the program. That's kind of what Gurney's telling him. He's beating him up for the first couple minutes, and then Paul returns fire. You know, he kind of gets on his A game and puts Gurney on his butt. So I think it's a pretty cool leadership lesson to take out of it. So thanks, for bringing that one up, Katie. But you can go further on what it means to you.
So I actually have a memory of the article of the soldier that went out to the lines in his boxer shorts and his pink boxer shorts, which is, I mean, if that doesn't encapsulate the idea, nothing can. But also, when I was a first sergeant, I went out to the lines in his boxer shorts and his pink boxer shorts, which is, I mean, if that doesn't encapsulate the idea, nothing can. But also, when I was a first sergeant, we did a couple of arty sims, artillery simulation exercises. We went on every month. We would go on a ruck march in sort of the field training areas. Well, occasionally we would surprise everyone with some artillery simulations or with some 50 cal sims. Yeah. And it really does, like, oh my gosh,
it sinks in. It's like, this is the real deal.
And it really does. It's an experiential moment where you had to suddenly become all of your training had to snap into place, and then I also think it does that same thing that the gas chamber sort of does. It gives you confidence in what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Because what did they do? They all got down.
Mm-hmm.
They started communicating. Like, they're all just, they're shocked, but their training knocked into place, which is just, it's very cool. So I really like this moment in the book, as it seems to resonate over this years between when the book was written and even now when the new movies come out.
And then maybe another powerful point, just you talking, Katie, is just a lot of times I coach a baseball team here in the local area. Is a lot of times you don't want to do it that day. You don't feel like it that day. I think there's even more value to the training that day whenever you don't want to do it, and it builds that discipline. So that's something I think. Yeah. Another thing that Gurney's trying to get across to Paul is even whenever you don't feel like it, you're the guy. You have to be the person that steps up and gets it done. So I think that's another good lesson.
You are the one.
You are the one.
You're the one who's capable. So it lays on your shoulders.
Yeah, but that's a good vignette, though.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
For real. Mm-hmm. So my number 4 is when Duke Leto starts to discuss with Paul the warning he received from the Bene Gesserit. When the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, the overarching Reverend Mother came, she tested him, and she says these words: "For the Father, we can do nothing," essentially indicating that Duke Leto is going to die. And then they tell this to a 15-year-old kid. It's totally fine, right? No. Okay, so the Duke acknowledges that his son is profoundly affected by that message, and he reframes that situation by saying to Paul, "No one wants their loved ones harmed. Just take it as a sign of love from your mother." And reframing that situation, it's very difficult, but it's powerful. It does help Paul get over that moment of fear, of those words that are cycling in his head. And that leaders that can do this for their team, they will genuinely be retraining them in a resiliency skill, which is put it in perspective. So the practice of reframing that, it's very hard. It's very hard.
I mean, it's hard because you're taking an emotional response and trying to make
negative one.
Yeah, a negative one, and trying to harness it, redirect it into a positive one. So yeah, it's very difficult.
Yes.
So this one obviously wasn't in the movie, but Katie read it in the book.
A way.
But yeah, in a way. But still, we're both MRTs, Master Resilience Trainers, so there's a lot of value to reframing it and kind of stopping in the moment, seeing the bigger picture, putting things in perspective, stuff like that. And it's a very powerful skill. But like I think we hit on earlier, is it's hard to make a emotional response and just pulling yourself out of that moment and being a little bit more objective, seeing the big picture. I think, even though, having not read the book, I think what this kind of means to me is just having that, I guess, patience and ability to just step outside the moment and see the bigger picture. So the Duke, he has a lot of wisdom in the movie as well. He's trying to set his son up for success, because he's going to be the Duke one day, and that's kind of how I interpret this situation. Is he's trying to tell his son that we all face our end eventually, and you have to come to terms with it. And that's, I think, part of us as soldiers and leaders. We have to leave the Army at some point, so we have to cater, we have to improve that next generation. It's just, that's the facts of the business, and there's a lot of emotion attached to that. But you have to put things in perspective. The Army goes rolling along, as we say. Leaders were going to retire, and it's time for the next generation to step up. So yes, it's sad that the Duke, his father, is going to reach his untimely end, it seems, but Paul is kind of the chosen one, and that's, I think, how we need to treat the next generation of soldiers. They're chosen for this time and place, so we need to train them up and get them ready to go. So that's what it means to me, just having not read the book but seen the movie. It's very powerful how the Duke and Paul interact in the movie, and I think he's trying to get that point across.
And it was really sincere, right? Their interactions were genuine, and that he met Paul where he was. He saw Paul was just like engulfed in this thought, and he saw that the way to burst him out of it was to reframe it. As difficult as that skill might be, it really is a really powerful tool that we can take something like, oh, I see that you were thinking about this in this way. Maybe your soldier is experiencing food insecurity, and you're like, yeah, but you're still showing up to work every day. You're still showing up to PT. I see that you're doing your part, so we're going to do our part. Whatever that reframing might look like, or, you still put a roof over your family's head. You should value that. Yep. So I think maybe it ties back to our earlier references where we're like, you can't just push too much of a culture of excellence. Why aren't we reframing it in a strengths perspective where these are your strengths, you're doing it right now, you're pursuing, you're getting through this moment, and it's almost like it turned the light bulb on for Paul, like, oh yeah, that was just my mom's love.
Yep.
I can move on from this moment now. Done. Okay, so our number 3 is when Thufir Hawat, right before the Atreides are about to leave Caladan to Arrakis, he says, parting with friends is sadness. A place is just a place. This rang very true for me in my own experiences, where it's really the people at a duty station that make it a good duty station, not as much as the location. Yeah.
But, I love that scene in the movie where it shows Caladan. It reminds me of Fort Lewis. How it's all like rainy and so the Duke says we're cultivating sea power and air power.
Yes.
So it's cool how he opens up with that, how you see the world, and then you go to Arrakis, which is desert power. Yes. So for me, ironically enough, I started out as a gold bar at Fort Lewis for 3 months, so I kind of started out at Caladan myself, and then I went to El Paso, Texas, which looks like Arrakis. Power. It's the desert, desert power. So I kind of had like a similar transition. But yeah, this really resonated with me because throughout the Army, PCS, a lot of NCOs, officers, especially with all the deployments. Probably 10 to 12 times every couple of years if you stay 20 years. So you get used to those farewell gifts, there's farewell parties, and just leaving your friends and close co-workers from each duty station. So it's kind of hard to cut that tether. And what he's saying here is it's always difficult to leave your friends, but it's easier to leave a place, because I think in the Army it's cool how you just fit right in. And even now, we were both on the People First Task Force, and before we did this podcast, we called one of our old coworkers to wish her a happy birthday, and we haven't seen her in a couple years. I haven't seen her face to face in a couple years, so we FaceTimed her, and that's something that lasts a long time in the Army. So I think this point really hits home that in the Army we're going to move place to place, all over the place. You're yanking your family all over the place, but those friends last a long time. So that's something that kind of stuck with me reading this. But, yeah.
You know what I really treasure about Army relationships is that there's no overt expectation of a very heavy maintenance. Yeah. That I can still, even though I've not talked to you for 4 years, we show up together, boom, we just pick right back up. Yep. And I think all of our shared experiences, even our family members, kind of experience that too. And I think that comes from, yes, I'm in a new place, and we all have this new obligation of rebuilding, making new friends in our new place, and our understanding that all of our friends are doing all of those same things, and they don't have an obligation to be like calling me every day or whatever.
Yeah, we know we know the deal. We know all of us are in the same boat, so it's like there is no like bare maintenance. You need to call me every week. There's none of that. We just know, hey, our paths will cross again at some place. Whenever that happens, we go hang out. So I think that's a cool thing. It's probably just unique to the military. You don't see that.
I don't know anyone.
I don't know that. Yeah, so I think that's really cool, and it kind of hits on it in Dune. So that's a sci-fi novel is kind of talking about the Army experience. Kind of so that's interesting to me. Yeah.
And of course, like you just said, like we went out of our way to reach back to someone we love and care about, but we might just have those sparks. Just maybe part of our toolkit. Yeah. One of the things to put in there is when that moment hits you and a memory comes, just go ahead and reach out. Just act on it. I think there's no shame in that, and no one's gonna think that, oh, you should have called me. Or
Yeah.
no one's going to think
Should have sent me an Outlook invite before you called me.
oh,
That
yes.
stuff.
Or, no, none of that, right? I think that we all kind of...
Yeah, act on that impulse.
level
Yeah,
playing
that's
field.
something me personally I'm trying to work on as well. So yeah, we haven't talked to her in a while. So yeah, I mean, let's wish her a happy birthday.
Let's
I mean,
do it.
We were all about it. Yeah, it's fun. But yeah, awesome.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, so my number 2 is when Stilgar, during those first interactions with Jessica and Paul, starting to integrate into their team, he starts to openly discuss with Jessica that the state of his team. He's got a lot of early adult members, and he recognizes that their development stage and the difficulties that we might face during that development stage that we might face, he thoughtfully tries to redirect some of those energies that may be combative or, I don't know, obstinate energies.
Yeah, stubborn.
That there's
Yeah.
a little bit like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I can't be embarrassed, and all those types of things that he understands, maybe just as he might have experienced those things, that's where they are. And he meets them where they are, and he tries to redirect those energies in a positive way, but just trying to understand really where they are.
And this resonates with me as a high school baseball coach. Is you're working with I also coach a 13-year-old team. Is there's a lot of emotions they have, and you have to put yourself in their shoes, so to speak. And it's hard because, I mean, I'm almost 37 now, to remember how you were as a teenager. You were stubborn. You didn't want a lot of people telling you what to do, so you have to reframe it and just redirect that energy like Stilgar does. And in the movie, he's also a very mature character, and he has a lot of wisdom to share with others. And I think for me, from watching the movie, is something I try to do in my leadership style is kind of observe a little bit more. Don't really act as much as you want to. Just observe their behaviors and see how. I mean, every teenager is different, and especially young soldiers. I think every young soldier is different. Some do their upbringing, they react differently to, I would say, a little bit more stern leadership, and some of them positively respond to that, and then some need a softer approach. And that's something as leaders in our generation, kind of the GWAT generation, is we have to get used to, and kind of figure out a way to put ourselves in their shoes and be a little bit more, I think, patient is a strong word for me. Is just being more patient with them. There's a lot of things that take a little bit of time to grasp, and it's frustrating as leaders because we want to excel in everything. Like you said, the excellence culture is there, so we're trying to lead them, show them the right way, but I think we have to have some patience and just giving them time to sort it out, so to speak.
Grow.
Yeah, exactly. Grow as young people. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it takes time. It takes a lot of. I wrote a good article from the Green Notebook about the social development model, how humans usually go over time and develop, and a lot of the Goldilocks zone, I guess, whenever you finally reach that maturity level, is like age 40 to 50 usually. So it takes a lot of time to reach that maturity where you have your positive relationships set, you have your family relationships set, friendships, great friendships, community, all that stuff. That usually doesn't happen until you're middle age. So we're asking a lot of age 18 to 22-year-olds to figure it out socially and from a community perspective right now, and it's very difficult for them. So we just have to have some patience, I think.
Grace. Extend them a bit of grace. Like, hey, don't expect them to be on that same level. Maybe just, like you kind of said, remember where you were at that moment. You know, what would have resonated with you, what would have worked with you, and here's my tool. Just ask them.
Yep.
Does that work?
Yep.
Is this working? Are you okay?
Or better yet, something I found, and I'm not sure if this is in the book. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of how I try to coach and lead baseball players is asking them what their goals are. Asking them, you redirect. I'm not sure if Stilgar does this, but you say, how do you see this turning out in a few years? What do you want to do? And kind of letting them give you the strategy. It's not really the leader giving you the strategy, because I see I work in pitching, so I see, hey, you need to get your lift leg, your balance point, all this stuff, and I say, do you see the same things? Because how does it feel whenever you throw a pitch this way? How does it feel whenever you throw a pitch this way? And they converse with you and tell you, well, I feel like this, I feel like I'm drifting. It's like, okay, let's take that, harness that, and they create the plan to get better. It's not the coach, so they feel bought into it. So I'm not sure if that's in the book in some way. So
Stilgar gives like one last desperate effort to Jamis before he challenges Paul, and he's just like, really, this is not gonna go the way you want it to go. Like, maybe just think about it. But it was too late. Like the emotions were too heightened, and I think that Stilgar had already recognized that. Like, he was like, oh crap, we're in a danger zone. I don't know how he could have.
Well, yeah, I mean that's another good point too, Katie.
Dispelled it.
You kind of have to let them fail. And it's unfortunate in the movie, Jameis dies. Yeah, I mean, that's a very grim outlet. But I'm saying, as a leader in a less intense situation, you kind of have to let them fail. I think there's a lot of learning
at a lower threat.
Yeah, at a lower threshold. So I think that's another. But yeah, I remember in the movie it shows Stilgar giving him those warnings before Jameis. He's like, we don't need to do this. They committed no wrong. And Jameis still goes and fights him and ends up losing. But it's a
good segue to our last one.
Yeah,
because our last one is
where he kills him.
Oh. What? Oh, you like my pants?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I got them from a veteran-owned business, and we support veteran-owned business. Leah Oak Boutique is where I got my pants. And if you'd like to shop there, you can click the affiliate link in our description.
Nice.
The last one. My number one Army leadership moment in Dune. I don't think they portray this well enough because this is my favorite moment in the entire first book. So clearly I'm emotionally attached to it. But Paul has just killed Jameis and his body is in this heightened state. He just like, very aggressive, very physically demanding opposition, and ended in the worst way. Got it. The spectator Fremen are like all applauding his victory. And Jessica, his mother, in her wisdom, she understands that this could be a dangerous moment. And she says to herself, now is a terrible moment. He must not grow to enjoy such a victory. And there's so much internal dialogue in Dune. Don't get me started on that. But that wasn't her internal thoughts, right? So she goes up to him, and it's almost cruel. But she says, well, how does it feel to be a killer? Ouch. And it cuts Paul. Like, it really does bring him back to reality. So he was on this almost high. And now that harsh remark, it shocked him out of that euphoria of the win to realize what was the cost of the win. It reminded him that the value of life, right? Yeah.
And especially from your mom. That's another thing I noticed is you're getting this
someone
from
you trust,
and she's kind of dressing you down. That's that tough love that a lot of leaders talk about. But my experience whenever I was in combat for the first time in Afghanistan is there is that euphoria you experience from combat for the first time, and you have all these emotions and you try and decompress after it happens, and you see kind of what you did, and that's what Jessica's saying is how does it feel? And that's something I think a lot of leaders and soldiers in today's army kind of struggle with, I would say, is they have to rationalize we're in the profession of arms, we commit violence, we're supposed to be good at committing violence. We have to in order to win, to protect our nation and protect its interests. So it's very difficult to kind of be objective with ourselves and reflect on, okay, well, I'm in the profession of arms, I have to commit violence, I may have to kill people. And a lot of my players have asked me about my experiences in combat. Okay, did you kill people? I was like, well, I mean, there's a lot of damage, there's a lot of harm that comes from what I do whenever I'm good at it, and the team is good at it.
Yeah.
And I think the learning point here is you have to understand the value of life, like you said. And something I've said at schools whenever I talk to my alma mater, Broome High School, is you still have to value human life, even though sometimes you have to take it in order to do your job. So that's the unfortunate thing in our business, our line of work, our profession. But I will say to my dying day that there's sanctity in human life, whether that person is an enemy, there still has to be some sanctity to it. I think the laws of war that we abide by, human remains, we did things all the right way. We played by the rules, and that's something that's very important in life, is to play by the rules. And I think as a leadership lesson for this podcast is our younger soldiers who haven't been into combat, you have to share your own experiences and how you dealt with it. And a lot of things can be gained from that. Just sharing your experiences, saying, okay, well, me personally, I've done airstrikes, I've done patrols where people have been hurt, wounded, or killed, and it's like this is the line of work we're in, so you have to figure out a way to don't really be on that high, like, yeah, you know, we kicked their butts, you're staying this high. It's like, well, you took the lives of 5 people. That's something it's very, a lot of people should be passionate about. But
right.
again, in our line of work, you have to find a way to just keep that, I would say, level-headed demeanor, and just having that perspective that this is our business, but this is our profession. But yeah, I think it's good that Jessica kind of tugs on her son and says, okay, it's great that you won, but at what cost? And that's something as leaders we always have to ask. Okay, we want to train to this high rate. What's the cost whenever we win? So that's something it's a very deep moment in the book, and unfortunately it's not in the movie. Like I told you, I wish this. I think this would have made the movie even better, and it's already one of my like top 5 movies. But yeah, I mean, Jessica does that good motherly instinct. Okay, I have to kind of dress down my son because this victory is going to go to his head, and he's going to be bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to spoil the rest of the, I guess, Dune Messiah. But, yeah, it's an important leadership lesson to make sure your soldiers don't always stay, you know, try and keep them level-headed, put things in perspective. It goes back to a previous point. You took a life. Okay, we have this emotional high from being in combat, but we have to get back down into a manageable emotional state and just know what the cost was. Yeah.
And I would even say, like, that's a reinforcement of values, or even a reminder at such a critical point. And I think a leader maybe just being prepared that moment might happen, that you might be faced with being the one responsible to be the reminder.
Mm-hmm.
Be ready for the moment to reinforce a value. And I don't think you should be afraid of that moment, even if it's shocking. And we've kind of went through a lot of shocking moments of the book where artillery sims, boom, boom, boom. We're shocking you into that mindset, but it's for that, again, an experience where you learn something very critical to be a great soldier.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that kind of from this situation that struck me in the movie is Paul has like 3 or 4 strikes on Jameis where he should have killed him, but he didn't, so he's delaying it. I think that's another good point. That's part of this vignette that's very powerful is as a soldier, to be a good soldier, to be good at combat, you want to win, you can't hesitate. No. That's something that he gets away with in the movie, but you may not get away with it whenever we have our next conflicts. That's something. It's very hard because we've been in combat. We have combat experiences. We're trying to share. You have to, whenever the moment strikes, you have to pull the trigger. You have to do the call for fire correctly. You can't make a mistake because people will get hurt.
Right.
So it's unfortunate to kill another human being, but that's kind of how it is whenever combat happens. So that's another thing I thought was very powerful in this scene in the movie is Paul is kind of, I think Stilgar says, is he playing with him?
Yes.
And he has those missing strokes where he's like, you could have killed him already. Why is he messing around? It's because Paul hesitates because he's such a young guy. He's never killed anyone before. Yeah. It's a very 15. Dramatic. Yeah, he's 15. It's a very dramatic step for a teenager to take that step and take a life. So I think that's another powerful thing that's part of this vignette. Yeah.
It's sort of kind of like a reinforcement of the train as you fight, right? Try to make your training as realistic as possible so then it's not such a shock to your system. And hopefully, as our other examples showed, that you will rely on your training. You will revert to that training mode, and you'll behave as you've practiced. Yeah. Hopefully, you got a couple of good nuggets to put into your Alice pack from our comparison of real life, army life, leadership, military leadership, really. Any service to our very cool sci-fi Dune, particularly in the light of the new movie coming out.
Yep, go watch the part 2. It's awesome. I hear
it's pretty legit.
Yep, I'm about to go see it.
It's fine.
Yep.
It's fine. I'm only judgmental because I'm obsessed with the book.
Yeah, you're a book nerd. That's okay.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Yep.
Guess what? We're okay with you guys. Love you. Thank you for
Thanks for stopping by. Yeah. And
subscribe.
See you next time. Like and subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you.